This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so today's session, we're going to be looking at the health and social care communication skills. So I'm just going to share the slides with you. Just tell me when you can see the slides, okay? Share. Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got the level 3 health and social diploma in health and social care. And today we'll be doing learning outcome 1, which is looking at communication skills for health and social care. And the learning outcome 1 is to know how health and social care organizations communicate with each other, you know, the way they develop communication skills and try to get on with each other as well, and try to communicate from different methods, using different methods. Okay, so the unit aim today is to develop knowledge and understanding of communication in health and social care organizations, and to develop personal communication skills. Why do you think, when we look at communication skills, why do you think it's so important?
To maintain the relationship.
Between who?
Between I think between the co-workers and the people
it could be between the patients, between the doctors, you know, it could be everyone. So it's anyone in the organization to try to develop your communication skills, because they're so important. So we look at the principles of having effective communication. So this main topic will introduce the different forms of communication used by health and social care workers and the context in which they are used. So communication is about making contact with others and being understood. It involves people sending and receiving messages. We all communicate or send messages continuously. So every time we send an email or a text message or anything, that's a form of communication. What are some other ways that you can make contact with others in the form of communication? What other ways do you think people communicate with each other?
By building relationship.
Building relationships. So is it just messages, or if they have verbal communication, do you think that's important?
Yes, it is important.
Yeah, because you're able to identify what the person's saying.
Yes.
So
and expressing the needs and the feelings of the person.
Yeah. So 1.1 is we're going to look at outlining the different principles of effective communication. So, you know, you have the message, and then you have the sender, who may be you or someone else, and then the receiver. And then the simple model of communication is when they give feedback. So it's really, really important that, you know, there are different models of communication that are used within the health and social care. Models of communication, again, definition. So the method of presenting communication process by figure or any visual method. The nature of it is practical or visual in nature. In regards to the subject media, communication models use symbols or pictures to convey messages. Why is it so important to use pictures or symbols to get a message across? Some people use things like, you know, they use symbols like emojis. Why do you think do you think some people find it easy to understand that thing?
Yes, to use the sign.
Yeah, sign, yeah. Why do you think people use that? Do people sorry?
I think for some people that maybe the deaf people, that if you use the sign, they can understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it's very important in regards to how you use the information. Okay, the understanding ability, so it's easy and comprehensive due to the manner of the presentation. Requirements for explanation. So it requires less explanation as it is.
And it also,
Sorry?
sorry. And it also helps to communicate, obviously, without the need of verbal response. So obviously,
Yeah.
if you make any verbal response, it helps. It obviously does help.
Yeah, it is the best. It doesn't necessarily mean you've got to, email someone to get the best form of communication. There may be other ways as well. Sometimes people prefer, people are visual learners. Some people prefer pictures. Some people prefer, writing. So everyone learns differently.
Yeah.
And you've got to bear in mind if they've got any sort of, disabilities or any special needs, the fact that they may be dyslexic or anything like that, that does impact on how someone learns.
Yes.
So the requirements for explanation, so it requires less explanation as it is represented by figures or symbols. Complexity, so less complex due to less use of text and more use of pictures, as we mentioned, or symbols to explain certain contexts. The time, so less time is required to prepare a communication model. And the effectiveness, so more effective since the presenter can explain to the audience with the use of graphical representation. So there's different types of models that are used. Why do we rely on these models? Why do you think we rely as an individual or as an organization? Why do you think we rely on different models? Do they help us come up with a decision, or do they help us identify the different types of resources we've got available to us?
I think it's able to identify the resources of sculptures, I think something like that. You can communicate with people different ways.
Yeah.
So some people pictures, you need to use the sign, and some, So something like that.
Like these different types of communication models are, academics. Academics have introduced these models, and we as individuals rely on them. Things like Aristotle's model, Laswell's model, which we'll go through in more detail, Warren Weaver's model, Shrim's model, Riley's model, Berlow's model, and contemporary model. So these are things we rely on as individuals, because historically, they may have helped us. It'll probably be something quite old that's come into place. So the first one is Aristotle's model, and this mainly focused on speaker and speech. So it can be broadly divided into 5 primary elements. So the speaker, the speech, the occasion, the audience, and the effect of it. So the speaker has the most important role in it and is the only one active in Aristotle's model. It is the speaker's role to deliver speech to the audience. Why is Aristotle's model quite good when it comes to things like conferences and stuff? Why do you think Aristotle's model is quite good? Someone who's a speaker, who's got the most important role. Again, a politician, someone who's a teacher. Why do you think that do you think Aristotle's model's quite good?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. Does it give the person, the speaker, quite an important role, and does it give them quite an important kind of give them more of importance when it comes to speaking and being the main person?
Yes, according to what I'm reading now, yes, it is.
Yeah. The role of the audience is passive, so they don't have much involvement, and it's influenced by the speech the speaker gives. So this makes communication process one way from speaker to receiver. According to the model, the speech must be prepared so that the audience can be persuaded or influenced by the speech. The model has highly used to develop public speaking skills and create a propaganda. And the example they've given here is a politician and a trainer, and it's quite a good example. A politician, he is quite influential, isn't he? He is the main person, the important role. It could be the prime minister, who's the speaker at that time. It could be someone in a conference that you rely on, because the whole point of it is this person's kind of drawing you in and influencing you by what they're talking about. So you've got the speaker, the speech, the occasion, the audience, and the effect. Okay, so this is Aristotle's model. Then we've got Laswell's model. So this model is about process of communication, and it's its function to society. So it suggests that the message flow in a multicultural society with multiple audiences. The model has 5 components, which is used as an analysis tool for evaluating the communication process and components. Control analysis, which helps the sender to have all the power. Content analysis, associated to stereotyping and representation of different groups politically. Media analysis, it represents which medium should be used to exercise maximum power against the receivers. Audience analysis, which shows who are the target population to be manipulated or brainwashed. So, you know, someone that you can manipulate. Then you've got the effect analysis, is used to predict the effect of the message over the largest population to the exploited. So who says what in which channel to whom and what effect it has. So it's trying to, again, draw people in and again, trying to brainwash people. Then we've got the Warren Weaver's model, or the linear model of communication. So the linear, or the Warren Weaver's model is specifically designed to develop the effective communication between sender and receiver. Model deals with various concepts like information source, transmitter, noise channel, message receiver channel, information destination, encode and decode. The sender encodes the message and sends it to the receiver through a technological channel like telephone and telegraph. The sender converts the message into codes, understandably to the machine. The message is sent in codes through a medium. The receiver has to decode the message before understanding it and interpreting it. The channel can have noise, and the receiver might not have the capacity to decode, which might cause problems. Then we've got the Berlow's model of communication, and this takes into account the emotional aspect of the message. So Berlow's model of communication operates on SMCR model, which is that's S stands for the source. The source might be one person or a group of people, or maybe a company or an organization. The M is the message, so what message is portrayed to them. Views of thoughts to be sent. The source must choose the code of language for sending the message. C is the channel. So the channel is the message such as telegraph, newspaper, poster, radio, letter, poster, or other media through which the message be transmitted. And R is the receiver, is the final element in communication process, and the receiver is the audience of the message, so the source, message, channel, or receiver. So sorry about this, but my internet's a bit on and off, so if I do get logged off, just stay on, I'll come back then, okay? So just in advance, I wanted to give you, it might not get logged off, but if it does, just please in advance, I'm just telling you, okay? So then I can just stay on and then I can restart it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, but it's not gone off yet at the moment. I can just feel that it goes a little bit off and on. So the next model is Screm's model. And here the information of no use unless and until it is carefully put into words and conveyed to others. Encoding plays. Can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Sorry about that. Encoding plays a very important role because it initiates the process of communication by converting the thought into content. What does encoding mean? Does anyone know what encoding means? Does anyone know what encoding means?
Maybe explain. No.
Yeah, it's trying to convert anything into like a coded form, you know, like using a different technique to transmit any sort of information. Okay, so when the information reaches the recipient, his prime responsibility is to understand what the speaker intends to convey. The model suggests that the encoding and decoding are the two most important parts of the communication process. And there's a diagram there of Schrem's model of communication, and it looks at the message, then the decoder, interpreter, encoder, and then the message again. It identifies the importance of the source and the destination of the source. Okay, then we've got the Riley's model. The model indicates the communicator, which is C, emerges as part of a larger pattern who sends messages in accordance with the expectations and actions of other persons and groups within the same social structure. It is also true in the case of the receiver, excuse me, which is R in the communication process. Both the communicator and the receiver are part of an overall social system. The model clearly illustrates that communication is a two-way process. So you've got the primary group, and then you've got the message from one person to the next primary group, and then it's back and forth. So from the communicator to the receiver in the Riley's model. The next one is the contemporary model, and this is the normal regions of modern day style of communication, incorporated communicator, encoding, information, moderate recipient, decoding, and suggestion along with sounds. So the communicator, the encoding, message, medium, receiver, encoding, and then finally the feedback is given. So the next element was to look at describing communication models and systems used in health and social organization. So a healthy and effective communication is a two-way process in which the person who listens tries to understand the other person's viewpoint. You know, if you're gonna talk to a patient, you need to try to understand what they're telling you. Why do you think it's so important for the person to listen and understand the other person's views?
So you'll be able to give accurate reports.
Yeah, and you're able to, you know, take in board what the person's feeling as well, aren't you? You know, you're able to identify what they're trying to get across to you. A good communication involves process of active listening and checking the understanding. In context to the health and social care, a good communication is really required between the customer and the staff. So in your case, it may be the patient and the staff, or the doctor and the patient. So it needs to identify that, you know, you are listening. Why is it so important to listen to someone? Why do you think it's so important to listen to someone? If you don't listen properly, what can you do?
You will know exactly what their feeling is.
Yeah.
What?
And
What if you don't listen to someone properly? Could you make errors?
No, there will be miscommunication. There will be a barrier.
Miscommunication, yes. And you might, you know, if you don't listen to a doctor, example, if you don't listen to a doctor and he tells you what medication to give to the patient and you give the wrong medication, so you really haven't been listening and checking that you're understanding, have you?
Yeah.
Well, you know, you have to really be careful when it comes to health and social care profession, because, you know, you need to identify that you're able to communicate well, but also listen and check your listening and understanding as well.
Yeah.
the staff should have good communication skills in order to develop a good relation with the customer, in your case, the patients or the staff. There are many theories of communication, as we've mentioned above as well. Out of Abraham Maslow's theories are applied in the health and social care. It includes, so we've got theories of communication, humanistic theory, and this theory explains that all individuals who need care are loving members of the society and possess a great potential to be good. It is applicable in the situations where self-esteem, dignity, and honor of the individual is involved. In the health and social care, the staff are given training to care for individuals in a humanistic way. Then you've got cognitive theory. So this theory is implemented suddenly. This is related to the brain and intelligence of an individual. This deals with coding, encoding, processing, and storage of particular information. Social theory is a study of social facts. This theory deals with discussions over many consistent methods. And then we've got behavioral theory. This theory deals with behavior of an individual and how to deal with it. It is the study of mental status of an individual. And then we've got the psychoanalytic theory. This theory deals with stress, emotion, and the type of behavior of an individual. It is the duty of the healthcare profession to train their staff, employers to provide the right source of communication to their customers. These techniques should be implemented using knowledge and skills. In case of Miss G, humanistic theory is applicable to communicate with her, to know her needs and show her respect in her desires. This theory of communication with her will help to make her happy and boost her motivation. So, you know, you need to be able to identify which theory of communication you fall within. So explain the benefits of both informal and formal communications. So care workers use different forms of communication during their working day or night. These include the verbal communication skills of talking and listening, as we mentioned earlier, the importance of it, and various forms of non-verbal communication, such as touch, eye contact, and facial expression. And why is facial expression so important? What does it identify? Why do you think someone's facial expression is so important?
It expresses feelings.
Yeah, expresses feelings, but can you tell by someone's face how they are, what mood they're in, or what you know, if you've said something, how they feel about what you've said, if you're upset, things like that? Does facial expression and eye contact impact on that?
Yeah, it shows a very
Yeah. Yeah, or maybe if you sat in a training session and you're bored, your face shows that, doesn't it?
yeah, that's true.
Maybe like today, I don't know. But your facial expression, if I can see your face, you would be identifying how you feel. Okay, so it is important.
Yeah.
A care worker has to use both of these forms of communication when they give or receive information about the care that is being provided for an individual. Provide emotional support to an individual or member of their family, carry out an assessment of the individual's care needs. So it's really, really important when you're talking to someone whose family member is quite ill, that you're able to communicate properly to that person and listen to what they're going through, because, you know, it may be something that's upsetting them quite a lot, but you're able to communicate verbally to them. So then there's different bases and origins. So formal communication, it is about deliberately structured, well-planned, systematic and authorized, prescribed chain of command. It's quite rigid, is formal communication. Official channel to achieve business objective, the time taking, accurate, legal and authentic, oral and written, and can be traced. So it's formal is quite, you know, restricted to what you can do. The informal communication is spontaneous and unstructured. So, you know, you may be, you know, there may be no with, you know, where it should be structured. So it's unstructured, it's unplanned, unsystematic, and unauthorized. Unofficial channels not prescribed. It's flexible, unofficial to satisfy personal needs. So like we said, talking to a family member who's going through quite a lot. It's fast and it's often distorted. So maybe rumors and gossips. And then it's usually oral communication and cannot be traced. So we've got verbal communication, and that occurs when one person speaks and another person listens. Care workers need a range of verbal communication skills. Why is it important for care workers to have these skills? Why do you think a care worker needs to have good verbal communication skills? Should they be a good listener?
Yeah.
Why do you think they should be a good listener?
In order to be able to attend to clients' needs.
Yeah. Yeah, the needs of the individual. They need to attend to the needs. So care workers need a range of verbal communication skills. So to respond to questions, if you're asked any questions, you're able to respond back to them. Find out about individuals' problems or needs. So if you're looking at a patient, you need to know what medication they're on, what issues they're going through. Contribute to team meetings. So if you have a final meeting in regards to things like, you know, any sort of issues with patients or anything, breaking bad news. So sometimes to tell family members and things, provide support to others, and deal with problems and complaints efficiently. The communication cycle demonstrates that effective verbal communication is a two-way process. Speaking and listening must occur. Listening is much harder than speaking, and there's more to this skill than just waiting for the other person to stop talking.
Even spotting situations like abuse and
because that does happen a lot, doesn't it? Where, you know, there may be some form of neglect going on.
Yeah.
You know, and you're able, as the healthcare professional, you're able to identify that, because that is a big concern in the health and social care. You know, the fact that, you know, in nursing home, there's quite a lot of issues of neglect going on.
Yeah.
And if you're able to identify that, you're able to protect someone, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's really important in regards to that, because especially in a nursing home, you've got the elderly people and they're not able to retaliate back. They're not strong enough. They're not able to, you know, say things back.
Yeah.
And them people who do that are more weaker. And to be honest, I think them people are in the wrong profession. Because if you have no sympathetic side of you, or if you have no communication skills where you're listening to someone, you know, they may have dementia, they may be quite ill, but if you listen to them, that might help them, you know, because they may have no family. You've got to bear that in mind. You know, sometimes people don't have families and they're able to, you know, identify that, you know, there's issues that someone else is listening to us. It's so important for someone to, you know, identify that they're being listened to.
Yeah, that's very.
Yeah, and if they've got no family members, then it is difficult. They tend to talk to the healthcare professional. Can you just 1 minute?
Okay.
आप नीचे वो लगा हुआ स्केल लगा हुआ नीचे, उधर जाके चेक करो उसे, जब उसमें कमी पेशी हुई ना, फिर मेरे से आके मेरे से बात कर लेना, ठीक है?
Sorry about that. So then you've got like non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication, as well as communicating through speech, people use a variety of different forms of non-verbal communication, and that could be, some of these are referred to as body language. So this is is because they involve the individual using their body and appearance to communicate. How is body language a good thing? How would you be able to identify any sort of issues with body language?
Yeah,
Gestures and postures.
if you are angry or you are annoyed,
Yes, yes,
they'll quickly see
excellent.
it through your face or your
You can
attitude.
see it. That's facial expressions as well as body language, isn't it? You know, where you're angry and you're folding your arms and things like that. That's a form of, you know, using your body and appearance to communicate to someone if you're angry. You know, for example, a care worker's behavior, appearance and attitude send messages to people who receive care, as well as to colleagues, about what they think and feel. Similarly, a person's body language may tell a care worker that they are uncomfortable or experiencing pain, even when they say, I'm okay. So, you know, can you give me an example of where someone might you know, be uncomfortable, and they say they're okay, their body language?
Such like a care home.
What about things like if you look at an individual and they're an elderly patient, again going back to the elderly patient, and they're wearing nappies and they've kind of, you know, wet their nappies or had an accident. Sometimes it shows on their face, doesn't it? But they're
Yes,
not.
they're very uncomfortable and they cannot
Yeah.
express themselves. Yeah.
Or what if they're sore as well? You know, that's really important, you know, to identify that the person might be sore. You know, if they've wet themselves for a while, you know, they've soiled the nappy or anything like that. Sometimes it's quite embarrassing for some people if they've not gone through it. So, you know, it is something to consider. Body language is really important. Again, non-verbal communication is a channel of communication that is always on. Forms of non-verbal communication, so facial expression, like we said, is really important. Movements of the face express a person's feeling. So when I'm, for example, when I'm doing my lectures, because I teach at a college, when I'm doing my lectures, I can tell when my students are really bored. They start frowning, or they start going to sleep, or they start making these funny faces for me to stop. So you can kind of identify your facial expression. So any sort of movements, any sort of person's feelings, smiling, frowning, any other touch or contact. So physically touching or holding a person, holding someone's hand, placing your hand on a person's arm or shoulder to reassure them that everything's going to be okay. Gestures, so deliberate movements of hands to express meaning. So thumbs up gestures to show agreement or pleasure, shaking a fist to show the anger or aggression. And then proximity is another one, the physical closeness between people during interactions. So being physically close to someone may be reassuring and may be seen as an accepting the person. On the other hand, it may make the person feel uncomfortable and threatened. People need less personal space when they have a close, trusting relationship. So eye contact, looking another person directly in the eyes. So examples of that could be short or broken eye contact, can express nervousness, shyness, or mistrust. Long unbroken eye contact can express interest, attraction, or hostility. Can you please mute yourself, whoever's... Right, I'll have to mute you myself. Right, I'm just gonna have to mute people because it's a bit noisy and causes problems. Okay. I'm just having to mute you people because It's just people are not able to listen, okay? So signs, symbols and objects of reference. Care organisations sometimes use signs and symbols to communicate with the people who use their premises. Signs and symbols are graphical ways of communicating essential information. Using images enables people who cannot speak or understand a spoken language, such as English, to communicate. Objects of reference are items such as toys, clothes, jewelry, or other everyday objects that have a special meaning for somebody. For a child, a cuddly toy may represent comfort and safety. An older person may treasure their photographs because they represent and provide memories of their families, friends, and relatives. Objects of reference could be such as photos or toys may be used by a teacher to stimulate communication with interaction with individuals with learning disabilities, because some people, you know, may struggle to talk or interact because, you know, they don't have a favorite toy or anything, or anyone with any sort of any sort of disabilities, you know, they may have a certain way of doing things. You know, people that are dyslexic, people that have autism, you know, they have different ways of feeling things and, you know, remembering things in different ways. Technological aids. So these are aids such as electronic communicators, hearing aids, video phones are designed to help disabled people who have difficulty sending or receiving messages as part of the communication cycle. Many non-disabled people now also use technology in the form of mobile phones, text messaging, and emails to communicate with others. Websites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Bebo are also examples of technological aids that promote communication between people. Human aids, so these include people who work as interpreters, who listen to the person speak in one language and then communicate what they have said to a second person in a different language. Translators who translate what is written in one language into a second language, so maybe English, Urdu, Hindi. Signers who use forms of sign language to communicate what has been said or written into a sign language, such as British Sign Language or Marketon. Alternative forms of communication, people who are unable to communicate in conventional ways sometimes use alternative communication systems to send and receive messages. For example, people with visual impairments often use their sense of touch to read documents written in Braille. This uses a series of indentations made by special stylus on one side of the paper. The combinations of indentations represent letters that can be touched, read by people who understand the Braille system. Has anyone seen that on food, on books? Has anyone seen Braille? You know, for visually impaired people? Hello?
Yeah, I've seen
I've seen it on paper, but I haven't seen it on real.
Yeah, you can have it on books and things like that. It just helps people that are visually impaired to be able to, you know, read what the Braille system identified. So it's like a touch thing on books and on foods and on packaging and things like that. People with hearing impairments or learning disabilities sometimes use lip reading and sign language to communicate. Sign language includes finger spelling, British Sign Language, and Marketon. A range of graphical signs and symbols are also widely used in health and social care settings, and to warn people of health and safety hazards, provide directions, and give information to people who are unable to speak or understand English. So you've got a variety of signs there. First one being things like danger, you know, keep out, no mobile phones, you know, no smoking, no weapons, no entry, stop. So these signs, do you think there's a need for having the graphical signs? Do you think, why is it so important to have graphical signs?
It's quickly noted.
Yeah, it's quickly noted by, like we said, someone who doesn't, whose first language isn't English. So, you know, they're able to identify what they're doing there. So it's quite easy for them to understand. So then we've got the next one is to look at explaining how technology is used for different types of communication. So technological aids such as electronic communicators, hearing aids, and video phones are designed to help designed people who have difficulty sending or receiving messages as part of the communication cycle. Many non-disabled people now also use technology in the form of mobile phones, text message, and emails to communicate with others. Websites such as Facebook, Twitter, and Bebo are also examples of technological aids that promote communication between people. What are the barriers to communication? So barriers to communication, a number of factors can affect an individual's ability to communicate effectively. These factors are sometimes known as barriers to communication because they prevent or interfere with the person's ability to send, receive, or understand a message. Sensory deprivation and disability. Visual and hearing impairment can act as a barrier to effective communication. Care workers should be alerted to the additional communication needs of people with sensory impairments and disabilities. Problems with sight or hearing can mean that signs can't be seen, leaflets can't be read, or conversations can't be heard. For example, conditions such as cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and autism also tend to limit individuals' ability to communicate verbally and to interpret other people's non-verbal communication. Foreign language and cultural differences is quite important in regards to an individual. So because Britain is a multicultural country, within the mixture of different ethnic groups, people speak a range of different languages. English may be a second language, even a third language for some people, and may not be spoken or understood at all by others. If health and social care organisations only produce and display information in English, and care workers only speak English, some people will find it difficult to find and use the care services they need. Similarly, people from different cultures interpret non-verbal behavior in different ways and may have a different sense of humor. This can lead to messages being misunderstood by or making no sense to the person on the receiving end. So, you know, culturally, everyone's got a different culture, and you know, everyone's different in society, and the way they express themselves verbally and non-verbally can impact on, you know, what something means or what they're trying to portray themselves as. A dialect is a version of a language. People who speak English using a Glaswegian dialect or a Liverpool, I can never say that, Liverpoolian dialect will pronounce the same words differently and may use some words, and they are local and specific to the area where they live. A person who isn't from the same area may not understand a local dialect. Distress and emotional difficulties. Some conditions such as having a stroke, being depressed, or having other mental health problems may affect an individual's ability to communicate because they affect the person's ability to send and receive messages effectively. Similarly, when a person is angry, aggressive, or upset, they may find it difficult to communicate, and their communication may be misunderstood by others. Jargon, slang, and use of acronyms. What is slang? What does slang mean? Who tends to use slang language?
Slang mean
It's
informal
like
types of language.
a particular word used by.
What is it? What is slang? Sorry.
I said it's a
Informal type
particular
of language.
a word that's used
Just
by a
informal.
certain group of people.
So could you give me an example of a slang word?
Like pulpit.
Sorry?
Like somebody say pulpit instead of put it.
Oh yeah, Poppy. Yes, that's a popular one. What teenagers can come up with different slang languages, and sometimes it's inappropriate because the parents and teachers don't
Oh,
understand.
I want to spend a penny.
Yeah. Huh?
Let's say now you could start off like some students could start off by saying instead of saying like hi, they start off maybe wagwan instead of saying
Well,
like
go on. Yeah. That's a or like they say man, don't they? If they're saying
yeah,
something, they
like
always
that.
say man.
Yeah,
And this kind of slang language is a bit difficult for people to understand sometimes. Do you know, like, and these acronyms they use, like things like, on your phone, LOL, laugh
yeah,
out loud, and things like that. Some people, I literally don't understand a lot of these acronyms. I'm probably really old, that's why. But it
yeah,
is difficult in some instances to kind of understand these acronyms.
yeah.
Yeah. Jargon is technically language that is understood by people in a particular industry or the area of work. So health and social care workers often use jargon to communicate with each other. So the fact that, they may be talking about a medication, or they may be talking about, doing some blood tests, and they may have a form of jargon they use between each other. Slang, again, is an informal type of language that is used by a particular group of people. Teenagers sometimes communicate with each other using forms of slang, which their parents and teachers don't understand, like we're saying, yo, man, things like that. They are kind of slang language that is being used. And touch, that's quite a popular one that people say, oh, touch, and you think, oh God, what's going on here? Acronyms are the initial letters to the words in phrase. For example, HIV for human deficiency virus, jargon, slang, and acronym will all have one thing in common. They are forms of language that only make sense to people with specialist knowledge. A person who doesn't have the specialist knowledge won't understand a message that includes jargon, slang, or acronyms. And people tend to use a lot of jargon on the mobile phones, don't they? Because they abbreviate and make little acronyms for what it means. So they tend to have that on their mobile phones. Health issues, illness, and injuries can cause people to withdraw and feel they don't wish to see others or talk to others, talk about how they feel to others. Medication and operations may also affect an individual's ability to speak, concentrate, or use non-verbal methods of communication. Environmental problems, so a physical environment that is noisy, uncomfortable, has poor lighting, or that lacks privacy, reduces people's ability to communicate effectively with each other. So noisy environments affect our ability to listen and concentrate. Poor lighting can affect our ability to notice non-verbal communication and could reduce a hearing impairment. Person's ability to lip read. Environment that are too hot or cold cause ability to discomfort, and environments that lack privacy discourage people from expressing their feelings and problems. So we've got 1M1 is proposed solutions to barriers to effective communications. So barriers to communication can often be overcome or are at least reduced by making changes to the environment, by changing the way you approach the other person, or by using electronic aids to overcome communication difficulties. Adapting the environment, making changes to the physical environment can improve the effectiveness of communication. Environmental changes may include replacing poor lighting and brighter lighting, soundproofing rooms, reducing background noise, or creating quiet areas, putting up multilingual posters and displaying signs clearly, Fitting electronic devices such as induction loop systems to help those with hearing difficulties. Care workers can make the best of their care environment by making sure they can be seen clearly by the person they're communicating with. Also making sure facing both the light and the person at the same time, making sure their mouth is visible when speaking so they're able to understand them, making sure they're minimizing background noise, using eyes, facial expressions and gestures to communicate where possible and necessary and appropriate. Understanding language needs and preferences. So special interest groups work on behalf of people who have sensory impairments or whose disabilities cause communication problems. These groups provide information and services that are designed to raise awareness and help people who suffer sensory deprivation to overcome the barriers to communication they face. Care workers should understand the language needs and communication preferences of people with sensory impairments and disabilities that affect their communication skills. The best way to respond to situations like this for the care worker is to use the person's preferred language directly or through an interpreter or a signer. Adapt their communication strategies to the language needs and the preferences of the person. The pace, why is it so important to be able to speak clearly and slowly? Why do you think it's so important, the pace? Why do you think pace is so important?
To convey the message easily from other person.
Yeah, you can lead the message and you can understand that person, can you? If someone's talking so fast and you're not able to understand them, then there's no point them talking to you, really, is there? Because you don't understand what they're saying. They may be talking about your medication. They may be talking about how many times you should take it. So to speak clearly and slowly and repeat things is very, very important. Especially, again, going back to elderly people, it's so important to speak clearly and be able to identify things. So speaking clearly and repeating and rephrasing if necessary are strategies that can help some people to understand what is being said to them. Speaking a little more slowly can help a person with a hearing or visual impairment, a learning disability, or who is confused. The speed or the pace of the communication may need to be slower to allow the person to understand what is being said or communicated to them. It's also important to allow time for the person to respond. This can mean tolerating silences while the person thinks and works out how to reply. Electronic devices exist to help people overcome the communication difficulties they face. This includes text phones, telephone amplifiers, and hearing loops. Electronic devices can be used both to send and receive messages. It is important to give the person using a communication device enough time to use it when they are communicating with them. Electronic devices, so it reduces the ways of overcoming it. It reduces outside noise. Listen carefully, speak clearly and slowly, use interpreters, provide induction loops, improve lighting, adapt to the person's need, and display clear signs. And that picture there is an induction loop which helps deaf people hear sounds more clearly by reducing or cutting out background noise. So it's so important that we cater for people from every who have special needs or any sort of disabilities. 1D1, which is to evaluate for the distinction, evaluate different uses of technology can enhance or detract from good communication in health and social care organisations. Here you'll have to talk about the use of technology, social media, email, web, webinars, presentation software, PowerPoint, Prezi, talk about the advantages of a particular type of technology. Hearing aid would be used for people with disability, the loop for people with hearing problems as well. And then these are some of the references that you can refer to when you need to do some reading around it. Also, you have access to Moodle. A lot of the references on there, the books that we've used, the sources that we've used to put these slides together are on your reference page, but also on Moodle, there's additional reading for you to go through. Tomorrow, you have another session. Is that right? Has everyone got that down tomorrow for 11 o'clock?
Yes.
So tomorrow you have another session. You have only 4 sessions in this health and social care communication skills. You have one today, which is learning outcome 1, learning outcome 2 tomorrow, then next Friday, learning outcome 3, and then you've got the assignment discussion, which is on the Saturday. Has anyone got any questions before we finish off now?
I got it.
Has anyone got any questions?
No, not at all.
No question.
Yeah?
No.
No questions? No?
No.
Okay. So I will see you tomorrow, everyone.
All right then.
And have a
Thank
good day, the rest of it.
All
You
right then.
too.
Thank you.
You
Bye.
too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks. Thank you.
Bye. I'll see you tomorrow, all of you, at 11 o'clock.
All right then.
Okay.
Excellent. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.